Roman is the biggest bad guy character in professional wrestling.
When's the last time you got laid?
French Toast is the exchange student that you have like a 3-week affair with.
Like, we can see that you don't have pants on.
Can we tell the truth about Dusty sooner or later?
Bro, less people wanted that than are currently watching our stream.
And you know Vince, and you still think, are these true? It's like...
Welcome to the Mark It Down podcast.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Mark It Down podcast. My name is Nick Cummings, joined this week by Nick Maniotis and Daniel Hernandez. We want to give a quick shout out and a get well soon to James DeSanti as he finally had that fabled shoulder surgery he's supposed to be getting for the last 6 or 8 months or whatever it's been. So hopefully he's doing well. And also a quick apology to Matt Cascone. I clicked the wrong intro. But we are back here.
Hold on. Can I also, while we're on the topic of James, say that, I podcasted the same day I got my surgery, and James had his surgery 2 days ago and has missed 2 shows. So yeah, just saying.
Judging by that hospital picture he put up on Instagram, I'm not surprised he's not here, but hopefully he's doing well, and hopefully the pain meds are kicking in real good. Anyway, we are back here once again to review this week's AEW Dynamite. This was Maximum Carnage. Outside of Moxley's ear, I think there was a minimal amount of carnage. That being said, it was a decent episode. As we get into things, we saw quickly, at first, that Taz was back. It was nice to see him back on the show. It looks like his surgeries went well. Hopefully he can be on the road a bit more. And we got a preview package for tonight's episode with everything that was going to go on. Should that time probably have put into a longer casino gauntlet match for the women? Probably, but whatever. We also had a bit of a smaller arena this evening out in Cincinnati, which I thought was pretty interesting. And we actually had the hard cam above the stage, so you could see the desk behind the ring, and it made for a little bit of a interesting broadcast angle for me. I don't know if it made any difference for you guys, but I think we're going to probably see some more unique stuff, Danny,
definitely,
as they start running smaller venues, because they got to put the camera somewhere.
Dude, seeing the commentator desk on the hard camera side, tripped me the fuck out. That was trippy. That took getting used to. Seeing it all the time, that was weird.
Yeah, it definitely threw me off a little bit. It was kind of cool watching their reactions, though, to some stuff. You saw Shivani stand up every once in a while. It actually kind of helped in the case of Taz when it came to Christian Cage versus Hook, which we'll get into later, because you could visibly see him getting frustrated on the hard cam before he stood up. But let's get into the show, and we're going to change the format a little than what we usually do and start with something that happened in the middle of it, which was the women's casino gauntlet match, mostly because this was just the best thing that happened tonight. So we might as well lead off with this. Obviously, was it not the best thing that happened tonight, Danny, or was that a woohoo?
That was a woo. That was a supportive woo. That was an agreement woo.
It was so low, I couldn't exactly tell. I just wanted to make
We're
sure.
Starting with the girls because we love girls. That's why.
and James isn't here, so
James isn't here, so we can do the girls first.
He set up his surgery specifically so he can miss this.
Poor guys laid up in post-op, and we're still ripping on him. Anyway, the winner of this gauntlet match got a shot at the AEW Women's World Championship at Grand Slam Australia against the champion Mariah May, who was on commentary for this match, and she was perfect. It sounded like she was hanging out with Nigel far too often. She honestly almost distracted me from the match. She was so good. Starting off brilliantly by coming out, saying hello to Taz, and asking him if he wanted to roll around since he has his new knee and hip. And he's like, "I'm happily married." And then she goes, "I meant in the ring." He's like, "Well, I'm also happily retired."
Fantastic.
Before I get into the match, I want to say hello to You Know It. Good to see you, brother, as always. Anyway, I will do what I usually do for the casino gauntlets and the sake of time here, and just run down the competitors before hitting some high spots. We started off with Chris Statlander, who won that triple threat last week to get the number 1 spot. She faced off against Jamie Hayter, which feels like something I don't remember ever getting before, so that was really intriguing. They were followed up by a surprise entrant, Megan Bayne, who we are big fans of here at the podcast. We see her all the time at House of Glory. She had one of the best matches I saw last year at Hog, and she was very good in this match. She was followed up by Julia Hart, then Willow Nightingale, the rookie getting another shot, Toni Storm, and Harley Cameron, who continues to get all of the good things. Just from quick notes here, when Bane came out, Mariah flipped out on commentary. She was really nervous. It put Bane over really, really well, as Mariah clearly feared her winning, which I really liked. Statlander and Bane had a really cool showdown, with Bane actually getting in a pin attempt off of what I believe was a Michinoku driver on Statlander before Hayter was able to break that up. A little bit later, after Willow came in, her and Statlander also had a cool showdown, with Willow getting the best of it by sending Statlander out of the ring with a pounce. When Toni Storm came in, Mariah did a great job on commentary denying that she had ever met Toni, saying that she faced timeless Toni Storm, who was very different than this rookie Toni Storm, and she last saw timeless Toni Storm as a lifeless dead body in Wembley Stadium being carried out by her butler. So good job out of Mariah there. Willow also had another great spot later on the match, which helped set up the finish, where she hit a crossbody from the apron onto Bane before rolling through and posing with a smile on the floor. And then the two of them got up and began fighting, which led to Statlander hitting a cannonball off of the stage onto both of them, and that took the three women out. Back in the ring, Hayter was setting up Harley Cameron for a Haterade with a backbreaker, but she took too long to go for the Haterade, so Harley was able to duck it. However, poor Harley ran right into a waiting Julia Hart, who hit her with the mist, and then Hart took out Jamie Hayter before grabbing Harley. However, before Julia could make her move, Toni Storm came rushing into the ring and rolled her up, keeping her down for the 3 and the win, much to the Tony's surprise and to the surprising delight of one Mariah May on commentary, who seemed very happy that Toni was able to get the win. So, Danny, that then leads us to the inevitable Mariah May versus Toni Storm match at Grand Slam Australia. So you can talk about that if you want, but I thought this match was a lot of fun. These casino gauntlets always are. And the women finally got their chance to shine in one, and I thought they did a great job, even if it was a little short for my liking.
So I'm just going to get the teeny bit of negativity out right in the beginning and just say this match should have been 5 to 7 minutes longer.
Yep.
We did not need MJF and Jeff Jarrett to talk for fucking that long. This could have been longer. And Tony's win should have been focused on more and not immediately cut to commercial. It's so dumb. Let the moment breathe, for God fucking sake. God, it makes me hate Excalibur, even though it's not his fault. But he's the, he's the go-to guy to be like, oh, we'll be right back because this is happening. Like, oh God, hated it. But now I just want to be positive. I thought this was fantastic for what time they had. I thought it was great. I thought it accomplished so much. I think the lineup was literally perfect. Like, you have Statlander starting the match, being the anchor, and she did a great job being the anchor. She bumped for every single person that came in. Like, she was the glue to this match, and there's a reason she was picked to be that person. Fantastic. Her and Jamie, right in the beginning, please, yes, give me a 15-20 minute match between the two of them. That shit would be amazing for a world title, for fun, for the love of the game. I don't care. Like, just give it to me. That's fantastic. Megan Bain looked fantastic. Like you said, Mariah May's expression did enough. That nothing needed to happen after that. Just her look of fear when her music hit and she came out was perfect. Already enough to be like, this person's important. Take note. Like, that was fantastic. And then she also did cool stuff in the match.
Yeah.
We got more of the Hayter Hart stuff, which isn't everybody's favorite, but it's still a feud and was furthered in this match. And we had the Willow Statlander story further than this, where they smiled at each other. Stat knows she's in the wrong, so she keeps letting Willow get a free shot with Chris's hands down or behind her back. She understands she fucked up. And yes, the face turn making no sense. We're past it. There's nothing we can do about it now. So as for what it is right now, they're doing a good job. She's earning her trust back. It's kind of like when Seth had to keep trying to get Dean to forgive him. You know, like when they first got back together, it's like that. You know, except the turn was bad. But hey, look what happened with that. The Dean Ambrose turn was fucking like really stupid, and then they were faces again like 2 months later. But you know, I really, really like that for what it is, despite the bad face turn. And then, of course, you got to have Toni win. Of course, she's going to go on to face Mariah May in Australia. But how he got there, I thought was really good. She came in, she's still doing her rookie stuff of hitting snapmares on everybody because, you know, she hasn't been wrestling that long. She knows the basics, you know, she knows her fundamentals. Uh, we got to find out what school she trained at, you know, and credit them because, you know, they really taught her the fundamentals. But the one thing I'll say that did make me laugh, like in a meta way, was the second Harley's music hit. I was like, this match is over. Like, even though she ended up not being the person getting pinned, I literally was like, okay, that's it. Like, it's done, right? There's no other entrance after this. Like, it's over now. But even her being in it, like, because I think this is a stacked lineup, even if, you know, Julia may be a little green still, but we've seen how much she's improved, and she's still a big name that gets a reaction. She got one of the like bigger reactions in this match. She's, you know, she has recognizable music. She's a gimmick that is over. So like, you know, Harley being in the mix with all these names is a fantastic sign for her and how much they value her and what they see in her. Because
and she
everything
didn't get
does,
pinned.
yeah,
And she didn't get
she
pinned.
didn't
I
get
thought she
pinned.
was gonna eat the pin. And while she was directly involved in the finish, it was Hart that ended up getting pinned, which actually surprised me a little.
Yeah, and you know what? That's fine because Harley got misted, and what the fuck does that mean? Is she gonna get crazier? Is she gonna go emo, or is she gonna be normal now? Like, who knows what this means? But I think for what little time they had, this was an absolute home run for the women. Like I said, I'm getting give them more time. Like, come on, let the moment breathe a little more. But I actually liked Mariah May on commentary too, and I like how she is playing along with the Tony Storm thing, but in a very like facetious way, where she's like, "What do you mean? This I've never met this person before. This isn't. I killed Timeless Tony Storm. This is just someone naming themselves after Tony Storm. Like, you know, it's very tongue in cheek, and I appreciate that aspect of it because I didn't know how she was gonna play it, so I was happy with that. But overall, for what it was in a vacuum, I think it was a home run.
Yeah, I don't have anything else to say or disagree
Yeah,
with.
I really feel like you kind of hit all the points there.
I mean, he
Sorry, I
got
was very
everything.
passionate.
Yeah, but Nick, I think he got everything from
Yeah, I
everybody's
mean,
spots
obviously,
to the time.
Well, put over Megan Bain more because you guys,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah,
that's
that was and that was like going to be my main takeaway from this whole thing was how well they put over Megan Bain coming in and making her seem like a big deal. Obviously, right? But no, I mean, you truly hit all the points. I think you said it perfectly. This was a perfect casino gauntlet. From competitors to how they did it to continuing storylines to everything. Nailed it. Good job, Toni and team. Proud of you guys.
Yeah, like this is again no notes on this match other than the length and the ending being cut off so quickly. I've been going back and forth with it here a bit in the chat saying that he's saying AEW is giving him WWE vibes, not learning from the mistakes in terms of not letting things breathe, and that they have been getting worse. AEW has at that happening, and it's a side effect of them trying to squeeze in so many things. I wouldn't be surprised if something went over beforehand. I mean, or we're all going to point at the Jarrett MJF segment probably because that was long as fuck and probably did not need to be that long. But so as much as I wish they had a little more time, they ended up maximizing what they got out of the match with the time they had. And yeah, they had to cut off Tony's moment there a little bit to hit the commercial, but I still think they did a great job with everything. Hopefully we get some backstage stuff with Toni that they're going to put out on Twitter or whatever, which it's surprising that AEW is really, really good at. They do great follow-ups on social media afterwards. And I wish a lot of it could be on TV, but there is only but so much time that they can have, and they want to squeeze as many things as they possibly can in there. So while that probably didn't come off great on TV, I think it's the ending that is, it probably came off great in the arena, and hopefully we're able to get more out of it. Maybe even see that backstage interview on Collision, which would probably be my guess as to where they put it, or even Dynamite next week. But there were definitely things that they could have cut shorter or cut altogether, like I said, with the intro to the show, and give the women a few more minutes or let that breathe more at the end. That would have made this that much better. That being said, as Danny was pointing out, this was a great match. We all had the idea that Toni Storm was going to win, and that is pretty obviously the right call here. But even then, it was still great, and it told a great story. Everybody played off each other perfectly. So, yeah, no notes. No notes other than the timing.
I want Statlander to wrestle every week. She's in her Perk Statlander era. Let's let that bloom.
Yeah, you know what said about Megan Bayne that he thought maybe we'd get a match with her and Mariah. I think I want to see Bayne and Statlander get at
Bayne
it.
And Statlander, Bayne and Willow, Bayne and Jamie.
Yeah, there's quite a few people who were in that match I'd really like to see Megan Bayne go against. I don't know how long she's going to be sticking around, if at all. This might have just been a one-off, something cool which I really liked about the Casino Gauntlet, where they can just get somebody in like this and have a surprise entrant, and then if they don't come back, so be it. But there are so many matchups I'd like to see her with in AEW. So hopefully she could come in a bit more, even if it's just on a per appearance basis. Get some of these really cool matches off, because I want to see them. I really want to see them.
She's going to be in NXT next month.
Oh, she's dating Joey Janela, so who knows? She could go to NXT, or she could just stick around on the Indies. I would really hope she stays on the Indies so I can keep seeing her House of Glory.
NXT's got a very good women's roster right now, so
they really do.
It'd be fun.
Yeah. Well, Vince isn't there, so I don't know if they're going to keep hiring tall, muscular legged blondes, but we'll see. Also commentating that the arena looked a little odd, and it looked like there were only about 200 people. I think that was because of just the way it was set up. If you look,
because it's a music venue, it could seat like 2,000 people if they're using the stage, but since they're not using the stage, they only could fit. I think they had 1,600 people there. So it's like, I get it, where like we've seen shows where there's like way more people than that. So like it does look smaller scaled compared to that, but I'd rather them fill up a smaller venue than echo in a bigger one. So like I'd prefer this, and then you get to see, I'd rather the venues look different every week. How does every arena look exactly the same? I'd rather the variety.
Yeah, like when they were at Hammerstein in December, those angles were really cool, and Hammerstein is just a great looking place. This venue was very unique. The upper deck was very interesting because it looked mostly just like almost like bar stools or computer chairs, and it was individual instead of bleacher seating. So I think that made it look like there was a bit less people, but the floor level was much deeper than you can actually tell on camera, because underneath the upper deck was very deep and it was very dark, so you couldn't see as many people. But I think it did make for a louder crowd, just because, as you said, Danny, when everybody was loud, smaller building, it was much louder than same number of people or even a slightly larger number of people in a much bigger venue where you can't hear anything. They probably drew the same amount of people as they draw when they go to, say, Bridgeport, but that arena is, triple the size because it's a hockey arena as opposed to, the smaller venue. So even though Cincinnati wasn't the best crowd this evening, they were dead for a couple of things. When they were loud, it was very noticeable that they were being loud. So this is something I think we're going to see going forward with AEW. They've talked about how they wanted to run smaller venues for this very reason. And I do think it is actually a benefit instead of a drawback. All right. Let's head back to the top of the show where we saw Kenny Omega making his in-ring return in AEW, facing off against Brian Cage. Kenny continued to use his Final Fantasy theme, so looks like he's going to be sticking with that. And to be fair, if I had Thank you. If I had those two guys make me a theme as cool as that, I'd probably come out to that with my entrance every time too. So I can't really blame Kenny for sticking with it, but hopefully we get Battle Cry.
Uh-oh.
Okay.
All right.
Damn, bro. Revving his goddamn Wi-Fi, bro. We were on such a good pace.
I not have done that again if I tried. Try to move my.
That's what you get when you try to talk about Battle Cry. They're
I
like,
was
no,
just-
no.
I was just saying I hope we get it back at some point, but apparently if I swipe with 3 fingers on my trackpad quickly enough or in the right direction,
no.
it's acts as the back button. So I went back to the StreamYard homepage. Oh well.
You learned something new.
Yep. I actually knew that, but my ring finger accidentally just clipped it, and there we go. As for the match, as we headed into commercial break, we saw Brian Cage press Omega onto the announce desk and then roll back into the ring, distracting the referee so that Archer could bounce his head off the desk. And then that corny piece of shit, Don Callis, who was on commentary, came over and got to punch Kenny in the head a couple of times as recompense for last week. Later in the match, Kenny was able to pick up the win after hitting a running knee, which sent Cage into the ropes where Omega was able to hit a V-trigger, and then he followed that up with a one-winged angel for the win. After the match, Lance Archer entered the ring and began the beatdown on Omega, and he was quickly joined by Kyle Fletcher. However, Ospreay was able to come in to make the save as he tossed Fletcher out of the ring before he and Omega were able to take out Archer with a knee strike from Omega and then a hidden blade. As Ospreay and Omega again began to stare each other down, with Kenny really starting to chirp Will. Will shoved aside Kenny to go after Fletcher, who had jumped up on the apron, knocking him off with a big boot before hitting him with a plancha. As the two fought on the outside, Konosuke Takeshita came out, and he took on Omega, getting the best of him when Fletcher was able to return to the ring, and the two of them took Kenny out. Ospreay again attempted to make the save, but the numbers caught up with him, and he was taken out as well. Takeshita then grabbed Omega, and Fletcher grabbed Ospreay, and the two hit a Raging Fire and Brainbuster in stereo, allowing that carny piece of shit to come into the ring and celebrate, and then they all walked out together as a family. So, Nick, this match was good. Obviously, great to see Kenny back in the ring here in AEW. It was exactly what I expected it to be, though. Cage working over Kenny's midsection, then playing off the diverticulitis. If you drank every time one of them said diverticulitis, you'd probably be in a hospital bed next to James right now.
I would not be in this podcast right now, that's for sure.
Yeah. And then, Kenny with the big comeback, V-triggers, one-winged angel win. So, good match, just kind of exactly what I expected it to be.
I agree. It was great seeing Kenny back. Anytime he gets injured, I am always worried when he comes back that maybe he can't hit those moves anymore. What can he not do? But he still looks impressive. And I thought Brian Cage looked really good too. With that being said, I'm so tired of Kenny Omega and Don Callis, the never-ending story. I just want them to be done with each other. Now, does this lead to another Kenny versus Takeshita match? Maybe. And if they, I'd watch that match 1,000 times. That's fine. But I just, with all of the other storylines going on right now, especially with the Death Riders, I was kind of hoping Kenny would get maybe involved in that on his way in, but it seems like they're starting with Don Callis, and I'm just, it's fine.
Yeah, we kind of discussed this last week. It's a decent way to ease Kenny back in, but we all already saw it, and we were pretty tired of it when it was happening, because when Kenny left, he was still feuding with Callis. He was just also doing it while he was tagging with Jericho. And nobody wanted that to begin with. We were done with Kenny and Don, and we were done with Jericho and Don. And instead, we got both of them versus Don. And then it all blew up in their face because of Kenny's illness. But I do think, and again, this is kind of just something we discussed last week, we might be headed towards an Ospreay and Kenny tag team match, maybe multiple ones. Maybe they face off against Archer and Cage first before getting at Fletcher and Takeshita, maybe a Grand Slam. And if that's the case, fine, but can it be over after Grand Slam? Because, yeah, we were easing Kenny back in, but we don't want any more of this. The both of them have, done their piece with Don, and it can end.
I agree. I'm over it. I'm over Don Callis and Kenny Omega. Move on to something else. As an EVP, your company's being attacked by your world champion, and you should. I feel like that's where he should be put in right now. But
I agree to an extent. Like, Kenny's back, he's on his own. It would be a little difficult for him to just go in there and have to, I guess, recruit people to help him. It's a bit of a weird spot. He did say that when he came back, he wasn't sure where to put himself in because there were so many good things going on right now. And between that and the fact that I guess you're technically supposed to win matches before you go for the world championship, I can see why he wouldn't immediately want to be tossed into that feud. But I think he does need to get there at some point, Danny, because Nick makes a good point. If you are an EVP and you're a face EVP and you have this guy running around, you can't just continue to turn a blind eye and continue to let him run roughshod.
I mean, I agree that I don't want to see him do anything with Callis anymore, but I'm also not offended by it. I think I said a lot last week that this is fine because it's just going to be a couple weeks. Like, we'll do an awesome, fantastic tag match with him and Ospreay teaming up, Omega Powers of AEW, like teaming up to take on bad guys that frankly aren't on their level, but still, they're close with Fletcher and Takeshita. Like, that's cool. Like, that on paper, fantastic. And that's all we have to get through. We just got to do that tag match, and then Kenny can move on. And I agree. I want him, at this point, I do want him to be the one to dethrone Moxley. Fuck it. Run it back. Like, what? Like, either Kenny or MJF's reign up before the last 2 months were the best, like, world title reigns. Just run it back. Like, do it again. To have him as a champion again. Fuck it. Have him be, like, the meter. If you want to put someone over as the next guy, you know what? Beating Kenny Omega will do that. So, like, if you want that to be Ospreay, let it be Ospreay. If you want it to be Darby, no, that sounds weird to me. If you want it to be Orange Cassidy, like that. Fuck it. Like,
Jay White.
What? No, that's weird. But like, like just put it on Kenny. I'm in that camp too. Like, fuck it. Like, let's pivot. But guys, everyone has to be cool. Like, just the tag match will be worth it. I promise. And then we'll move on.
Oh, it's gonna be great.
It's gonna be fantastic. That's not the concern.
We just want it to be. Look, if they're gonna, like I said, if they're gonna do this, let it be short. Let it get to Grand Slam, which is in a few weeks, and then we can just be done with it. If it goes past there, if it goes to Revolution, I'm gonna be a little annoyed.
Oh,
I mean, it's still gonna be good wrestling.
Too long.
Yeah, it's still gonna be good wrestling, but it's just like we're done with this. 18 months ago. We're still done with it now. So, all right, ease Kenny back in with the feud with guys he's wrestled before, so he has that comfortability level. But don't let this go too long, and we can go from there. If he doesn't go immediately after Moxley, I can also understand that too. He might want to make sure he can go for a while before they put the title on him, just in case. But I do think he has to get into that picture at some point in the near future. And it doesn't look like it's going to be Darby anytime soon because I'm pretty sure he's going to Everest again. So I think that's back on the menu. So somebody's got to get there. I don't know if they're going to end up pivoting from Moxley. That's something we could also maybe talk about later for the main event. But if they're not, if they're going to be stubborn about it, we'll see. We might just be stuck in a Moxley title reign for a while. But we'll talk about more of that later when we get to him. Let's move on. We had a quick vignette for MVP as he was making his return to the ring for the first time in 2 years for the Hurt Syndicate's match against Private Party and Mark Briscoe. There was a longer version of this that AEW put up online. That was pretty cool. And MVP also mentioned the fact that he is the longest reigning United States champion ever. And that got some play on the internet as people were complaining that he mentioned a title that is WWE's, and he basically told everybody to go fuck themselves. So good for him. We came back from commercial for Chris Jericho's New York Minute. They talked some shit, but basically the thing we got out of this is there's going to be a 12-man tag on Collision. It's rated FTR, the Outrunners, and Powerhouse Hobbs up against the Learning Tree and the Death Riders. We then went in ring for a promo with Ricochet, who had Justin Roberts tell everybody to give him a warm welcome, and he came out, scissors in his suit pocket, to a chorus of boos and a bunch of "Whose House, Swerve's House" chants, which visibly frustrated him to the point where I wasn't sure he was going to cut a promo. He did end up speaking after a few minutes, but the extent of what he said was, "That's how it's going to be. That's okay, because a picture is worth 1,000 words." And he put the picture of him standing over a bloodied Swerve on the Tron after he had stabbed him a few weeks ago. Swerve's music then hit, and Ricochet freaked out and started looking towards the ramp, ready for a fight. But Prince Nana was able to sneak in behind him with the steel chair and hit Ricochet across the back with it, laying him out. Swerve then came out of the tunnel with his hand wrapped in a chain, and he basically just sauntered down to the ring, up to Ricochet, where he took a swing at him with the chain, but Ricochet ducked it and escaped out of the ring. Ricochet then scrambled to escape, falling into the timekeeper's area, which was really funny. It looked like some Looney Tunes shit. And he ran towards the door as Swerve continued to stalk him, and Ricochet threw some security guards at Swerve to slow him down, allowing him time to get through that door and escape both the arena and Swerve out into the snow. I guess it snowed in Cincinnati. But Danny, I thought this was smart because Ricochet cut an in-ring promo without having to cut an in-ring promo. He was a complete, dorky asshole we all expected him to be because he was so visibly annoyed by the crowd. He used 2 lines, got heat by putting the picture up, and then again just looked like an absolute dork when Swerve came out and looked like a badass and just walked him down before Ricochet had to escape in the most, one of the lamest way possible.
This was fantastic. I was a big fan of this. Look, Ricochet has leaned so far into the criticism that I feel like it was a lifetime ago. Like, that's not even the same guy who was responding to Twitter trolls, poorly 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago. Like, he's a different guy now, and I'm here for it. The heat he's getting is fantastic. It's great. It could not have worked out any better. This has been kind of beautiful. I'm into the absolute geek, but I'm gonna be I'm gonna snap and turn into a serial killer. I don't want to say, school shooter, because that's, has a terrible connotation, but that is the vibe.
You put the thought out there, so that's what I'm going to be thinking of.
I'm not going to say it. Y'all have been saying it for the last 3 weeks.
No, it doesn't matter.
Well, James
no
has
one's ever said that. But I think it's worked so well, and I also love that Swerve came out old Swerve, ready to kill him. It was very simple. He was so calm about it. He was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna kill you," and then when Ricochet ran away, it's like, "That's fine. I'm still gonna kill you." It's totally fine that you got away, because you can't run forever. So I thought this was a home run. It's really good. Ricochet has really turned this around, and Swerve is always gonna be Swerve. We don't have to worry about him. So I think home run segment again.
Yeah, I really liked it. They did a lot with not a whole lot amount of time. I know, it's in the chat complaining that maybe the women could have used this time because it was just 3 minutes of silence. But they did a lot with that.
There was time later in the show the women could have used.
Yeah, most definitely. But they did a lot with it. You saw a lot of Ricochet's character, despite the fact he didn't say anything. He acted like this tough guy coming out, but then he was visibly shaken by the crowd's reaction. He acted like this tough guy putting up the picture of a bloody Swerve, But then Swerve came out, he immediately acted like a bitch. So, and Swerve, again, just looked like that killer we know him to be, Nick, the guy we saw in those Hangman matches. So this was time well spent, I thought.
I agree. I think the 3 minutes of booze were actually very important for Ricochet, especially with kind of establishing this new heel character. Like Danny said, he really is leaning into that internet troll response type situation. And I think it was perfect for him. You know, had it gone on and nothing came of the segment and he just walked away, then yeah, I'd say maybe we didn't need that. But I think this whole segment was important. It's always good to see Swerve too. Swerve will kill a guy. We've seen it almost happen a couple of times. So I can't wait for them to finally get their hands on each other.
Yeah, there's going to be a whole lot of fun. That's going to be a really good match too. I think they've had a couple of matches before. I think I heard Ricochet mention they had, but we haven't had matches like this where Swerve is this character and Ricochet is this character. So I'm really looking forward to it. And Ricochet, this character, I like that he is the internet troll, but he's also the internet troll who actually has to face the consequences of his actions, because he is there every week and people are actually going to be able to find him. He can't hide behind the anonymity of the internet. So it's a real fuck around and find out situation for Ricochet. He can keep doing what he's doing and he can keep being that troll and occasionally being, this violent person with these scissors, but, he not only took it up a notch with that, he went after the wrong motherfucker. He really did. So I think Swerve is going to kill him, but I could definitely see in their first meeting that Ricochet beats him so that they can continue this a little further. Because I think this is going to be a feud that goes more than one match.
Oh, I'm sure.
You can't just stab someone with scissors and then win by pinfall.
Exactly. I'm sure it'll be a cheating pinfall, but yeah, the blood needs to be spilled.
I was looking up. I swore they fought in Lucha Underground as Killshot and Prince Puma, but I can't find it.
Yeah, you think, right? But I don't think they actually did there. I think it was like indie shows and stuff.
Could have been like Defy or whatever. Shane Strickland and...
Yeah, or maybe even, something over in Britain or something. But yeah, weird. They never crossed paths in Lucha Underground. Which, fun fact, to go a little side note, is apparently now canon in WWE. Michael Cole brought it up when Penta debuted on Monday. So,
which is fantastic for whenever Penta and Chelsea Green are in the same ring at the same time.
Or Penta and
EO or Kyrie.
Kyrie, yep.
Oh man,
bro, Penta's got some work to do, bro.
Penta's gonna be the greatest Women's United States champion.
It's crazy how him being there just makes me want intergender wrestling. Like,
I saw somebody on Reddit say, like, the same way that Brock fears Kyrie, that Penta is going to fear EO and just completely avoid her the entire time. So that's going to be a lot of fun. I thought Penta, they did a great job debuting him. His presentation was, very similar to what it was in AEW, but he's just so cool. It doesn't matter. And the match looked great. And Gable spiking himself on a Canadian Destroyer was an all-time Destroyer cell.
Perfect.
Oh, amazing. It was great debut. I will say that the situation that Phoenix is in is bad, but I'm so glad Penta's on his own. I don't want them to be a tag team. I want singles Penta. Like, if you're going to leave, be singles wrestlers, because you were a tag team in AEW or trios most of the time. Do single stuff. Penta is too charismatic to be lost in the WWE tag division. Like, be a singles guy. Fuck it. Put the world title on him. Fuck it. I don't care.
Yeah. Hey,
Penta versus Gunther is going to be great.
Those slaps and those chops are going to ring out for decades. We didn't get any Penta, glove all slaps though on Monday. Maybe he's holding it back, but that's for Monday nights. So let's keep things moving here. After this, we had a quick Mercedes Moné vignette, basically just a day in the life type of thing of the CEO, especially now that she has 3 titles and 4 belts, because 2 of them I think are from Revpo. And then we came back to our next match and saw the Hurt Syndicate face off against Private Party and Mark Briscoe. As I mentioned earlier, this was MVP's first wrestling match in 2 years. I think he had a match in Bloodsport
against Josh Barnett, right?
Yeah, which I think was mostly a jiu-jitsu thing, which is why it wasn't really a wrestling match. And it was his first matchup in AEW. And he looked pretty good. The Hurt Syndicate ended up attacking Private Party and Briscoe once the bell rang, and it ended up being MVP versus Briscoe in the ring as the other 4 ended up fighting out on the outside. And MVP wrestled the first 5 minutes or so of the match, and he looked good. The match ended up ending when Zay was taken out by Lashley with a spear, and then Briscoe was taken out on the outside, by a big boot from MVP, which allowed Shelton to go one-on-one with Quinn, hitting him with the release German suplex, and then following that up with a super kick to pick up the win. So, Nick, kind of similar to the Kenny Omega match, this was good. It was exactly how I expected it to go. Hurt Syndicate, hurts people for the beginning of it. We have the comeback from the faces, and eventually the Hurt Syndicate ends up winning. And not only that, we had my man Shelton Benjamin pick up a pinfall victory over one half of the tag team champions. So we are very clearly now going to get this tag team match in the near future, most likely at Grand Slam. Tag team title match, to be specific.
So MVP looks great. Like you said, he worked the first 5 minutes, and I think these kinds of matches are going to be perfect for him. Because look, maybe he can still go 15, 20 minutes and be fine. I'm sure he can, but I think something like this works better for him. He's not someone that needs to be in the ring all of the time, but it's nice when they want to do these 6-man tag matches. And yeah, I thought he looked great. I love Shelton Benjamin. Shelton Benjamin needs to win all the time. I think Shelton Benjamin should win everything. Obviously, like you said, we're going to be getting them versus Private Party. I think that'll be a good match. I don't know if Bobby Lashley and Shelton Benjamin beat them. But I think it'll be a good match either way whenever they do it. I guess, like you said, probably at Grand Slam. The only other thing that makes me sad about this match is poor Mark Briscoe. I feel like anytime I see him on TV now, I just expect him to lose. If he's teaming with anyone, I just expect them to lose. And I hate to see that, but I love Mark Briscoe too. I wish there was more for him, but also at the same time, it's nice that he gets the TV time and he gets to go out there and work.
Yeah, we were discussing last week after his match with Bobby that he can take a loss like he did against Bobby, but if these losses continue to stack up, no matter how much goodwill Briscoe has, eventually it's going to fade because he can't keep losing. So hopefully he is able to win some matches. But yeah, give Shelton everything.
Yeah, right. I mean, look, if he's losing to Shelton Benjamin, it's fine. But
yeah, and he didn't take the pin. To be fair,
no, he did not. No, I think it was Mark Quinn, right?
Yeah, it was Quinn. So he avoided that humiliation at least. And again, they had to do that to help set up this match. Again, presumably at Grand Slam. So that was smart booking there. But hopefully Briscoe can get some wins in the future. Danny, I was honestly, this match, like I said, it was fine. The vignette I talked about before with MVP, the one online, I thought was better than the match. I was excited to see MVP in the ring after that. He had a line, I'm not sure if they put it in the shorter version here on TV, but he said, like, I don't only manage the Hurt Syndicate, I also manage how much oxygen that is going into your body at any given moment. Like, it was way colder than that, but I was really excited to see him back in the ring. He held his own. I agree with Nick in that these situations seem best for him, where he could probably do a singles match, but having MVP only come out for every once in a while special occasions type thing, I think keeps him a lot cooler and a lot fresher for when you need him.
Yeah, I agree with that. Use MVP wisely. He is the mouthpiece that he's the manager that manages in a hands-on way. You know, like have him come in once in a while when need be, when you gotta do a trios match. Or if, honestly, I see an inevitable trios championship run for this group. I see them winning the tag titles first and then winning the trios, just because they got to delay putting Bobby in like the world title scene, because that's gonna be a whole like. Look, I know it's an ex-WWE guy thing, but you got to protect Bobby. So, like, keep him away as long as you can. I get that. So I see a trios run in the future where MVP only ever wrestles in the title defenses. Or, like I said last week, they win the tag titles and they freebird it, but MVP never wrestles in the title matches. Like, it's perfect. Like, put the titles on him. Like, screw it. Like, reset the tag division. It worked perfectly with Swerve and Our Glory. We're all like, what? Like, this is the team you're putting, like, they're not even a team. And then it turned out fantastic. Like, yeah, Bobby and Shelton aren't a tag team, but they're in a faction. So, like, they have the camaraderie. Just do it. It'll work out better than whatever they're doing currently with the titles, which is warming them up for the Hurt Syndicate. Just screw it. Let them go out there, and then you're going to feature Bobby on TV as much as possible. So that'll be good for the tag titles. Seems like a win-win situation, honestly.
Yeah, I love Private Party. I'm really glad they won the championship, but I think we've mentioned that was more for the moment for them than perhaps maybe a lengthy title reign, which sucks, but it's going to happen to some teams. That's just the way it is, especially when you have two guys like Shelton and Bobby come in, obviously with MVP as the manager. They need to have gold around their waist as quickly as possible. And in this situation, the tag titles are just the most likely place for them to go, just because of where everything else stands in terms of the title picture, all of the title pictures. So this is the best way to go about it. Yeah, it kind of sucks for Private Party, but they're probably going to have a really good match against these guys. And I think putting gold on the Hurt Syndicate is the best move at this point. I also really like, Danny, that you called MVP a hands-on manager, because we don't have a guy like that really in AEW. A lot of the managers are, like that carny piece of shit Don Callis, where they only get involved when they can get a free shot in, but they're not a wrestler. The closest thing I think we have to a wrestling manager is Smart Mark Sterling, and he's more of a comedy guy who, takes bumps every once in a while, but he doesn't wrestle. And you have Nana, who was a great wrestler. Yeah, he was a great wrestler, but now he's, retired from that role, and now he's a really great manager. So having a manager who is also we'll say part-time but legitimate wrestler is a really cool thing, and I feel like a unique thing to have on this AEW roster.
I think it's unique in wrestling, period, honestly.
Very true. Yeah, because I don't remember VP getting his hands dirty too much in WWE. At least for a while there with the Hurts, or I guess
no, he did.
He did a couple of times.
Yeah,
he was a 24/7 champion. Okay, have some respect.
Fair point. But yeah, I think I was thinking more in the beginning he was, and then when they got Cedric into it, he was able to take a step back and he wasn't wrestling as much. So it was really nice to see him in the ring again. Hopefully, we see it enough where it's still fun and like a treat for us, but it's not, and it doesn't lose that luster, by them doing it too frequently. So good stuff out of all of these guys. All right, after this, we got another vignette. It was a very quick one for Rated FTR, basically, where it was just like, oh, hey, look, they're best friends. Yay. And we also got a match announcement for Copeland versus Pac next week after their string of recent run-ins. I also forgot to mention, after the Ricochet thing, him versus Swerve is happening on, I think, February 5th on Dynamite. So they announced that as well. So we got to wait a few weeks for it, and it's not a Grand Slam, which is odd, but that appears to be their first matchup. I imagine they're probably ramping that up more for Revolution for their really big blow-off match. All right. After this, we had what we've continued to discuss tonight or make reference to, the Jeff Jarrett MJF promo. So, do I have to do all of this?
No, let's just dunk on it. Like, why this went off I was so lenient with the Jeff Jarrett shit last week. You can go back and watch. I was very like, oh, I trust AEW Jarrett. It's MJF. This shit sucked though, bro. This made no sense. They just started shitting on each other's significant others, calling them sluts and like whores, and talking about banging nonstop. And I was like, who is this for? Like,
I think Ric Flair wrote this segment.
Really?
Yeah,
Right?
like, what was this shit? Like, bro, and it went on forever. This could have not been on the show. The Gauntlet could have had 10 more minutes and it would have been even better. But instead, this happened, and it made me not like something I was really open to last week. And like, hey, I'm not saying it's doomed. Maybe they'll turn it around. But this was garbage. Like, there wasn't even any like killer punchlines. It was just like, yeah, well,
Two guys
my
who
wife might be a famous slut, but your girlfriend, who not everybody knows is your girlfriend, is also a Canadian slut, specifically the
It's
worst
the
type of slut. Like, this was nonsense. Like, who is this for? Like, even people who would have enjoyed something like this wouldn't enjoy this specifically because it wasn't even like clever. Like, it's like this. I can't.
And I think the big thing for me with this too is, who is it? Like, what even was the point of this entirely? Like, it feels like I'm not seeing even the whole point of this storyline in the first place. Why MJF feels the need to come out there and just rag on Jeff Jarrett. Like, I get the whole what they're going for, but it just feels kind of like a waste of time for both of them. And they're just like, oh yeah, go out there and just cut a promo on each other, and it's a mess.
It's this
I was
weird
like,
thing
oh,
where,
you're both pros. Like, just go out there and fill this amount of time. I trust you guys to iron out all the details, and should not have trusted them to iron out these details.
No.
yeah, fill all this time that we could be putting towards the Women Casino Gauntlet match. But it's this weird feud where MJF almost feels threatened by the fact that Jarrett also wants to go for the AEW World Championship. So he attempted to use him, and now that Jarrett has declined that, he's just going to attempt to get him out of the way, where it's like, Max, it's Jeff Jarrett. Like, he's 100 years old. If you hit him, he's going to turn to dust. Like, it shouldn't be that big of a threat to you. And instead, he comes out here and, like, MJF was trying to hit all the usual, like, crossing the line MJF zingers, talking about, you know, Jarrett's history with alcoholism, and then mentioning that he wanted Jarrett to go back to rehab and then leave his MILF wife behind, and then he'll send her back to Tennessee so that Jarrett knows how a generational talent and Olympic gold medalist balls taste, in reference to Kurt Angle. Like, I mean, we've gotten better material from MJF, and then Jarrett comes back, as you mentioned, Danny, calling MJF's mother a call girl, which, Jesus, Jarrett, like, how old are you? And then saying that, like, she still charged his ambulance chasing lawyer father when, you know, after he was got her pregnant. And then again, he called MJF's wife or fiance or whatever the relationship is, I don't really know. He called her a Canadian call girl, and said when MJF was having a 60-minute match with Ospreay, she was going 60 minutes with 10 guys in the back. But the end of this was, I think, probably maybe the best part, depending on how you want, like, look at it. MJF was pretty upset that, well, he's upset about a lot of things, but MJF wants to win the title because he got screwed out of it after lifting the company up, arguably a little arguable with the ratings there, buddy. But MJF's really ticked off that Jarrett thinks that he's owed this grand finale because he was best friends with Owen Hart, and then MJF called him a carny succubus, saying he saw it through Jarrett during the Owen tournament. seeing the leech who's been riding the coattails of his deceased friends, and then starts mocking Jarrett, that he's talking about his old pal Owen Hart. And that's when Jarrett lays him out with a right hand, jumps on him, starts beating him up. Security comes over, pulls Jarrett off. Jarrett breaks free of them, goes after MJF again, and then Karen came out, pulled Jeff off of him. And honestly, this was the best part of the whole thing. MJF got up, used Karen as a human shield, and then ran away. But saying all of that stuff, because you're right, Danny, like this was some real lowbrow, real easy to do barb trading, and it didn't hit right, and it was way too long.
It was lowbrow, and it's still it was lowbrow with the low bar, and they still tripped on it. And the thing is, when you just explained most of what happened, it's crazy that everything you needed was there, and then they added an extra 6 minutes of nonsense to it. Very simple, right? The one-hit wonder note last week, that's a key part of this.
Yeah,
focusing on that. The questionable line about Jeff Jarrett shows up in a company when it's about to die, sort of thing. Maybe not the best thing to say in current AEW state, but it's a good line. It's a good line. But it's okay, those are the notes. Those are the zingers. Why did we get this extra shit? People, not everyone knows that MJF is dating Alicia too, and even more people don't know who that is. It's especially when she's not on AEW television more than once every 3 months.
I don't even know her name.
Someone.
I know she's Tits McGee from that old MJF promo when he was on
from Whore Island.
Yeah,
all right.
Island, I had no idea what her real name was.
But this story would have been fine. Just stick to the notes from last week. Have MJF still trying to convince Jarrett to let him help him. Why did this go from 0 to 60 in 1 week? It was so unnecessary. Just
let it breathe.
It could have been. I don't want to keep talking about it because this is just. It was a waste of time. It's a waste of time to talk about, and it was a waste of time to experience. But it could have been fine, and it went in such a weird direction instead.
Yeah, I can see maybe what they were trying to do, where MJF comes out, tries his usual shtick of getting into some personal stuff. Jarrett shakes it off because he's heard it all before, and then eventually MJF crosses the line by bringing up Owen, and we could have cut out that whole middle part with Jarrett and talking about MJF parents and shit, and just done the you're a one-hit wonder thing, and this probably would have been a little bit better. I probably would have skipped the stuff about Karen too, maybe. But again, it was just MJF trying to get under Jarrett's skin, and none of his usual shtick worked. I don't know what Jarrett was going for, trying to do the exact same thing. Yeah, it riled MJF up a little bit, but really got after him was the one-hit wonder thing. So them trying to do the same thing to each other just ended up dragging this out way too long when it could have been 4 to 5 minutes shorter. 4 to 5 minutes more for the women's casino gauntlet match, and sometimes less is more. And I think this was a great example of that. If they had just done less, it would have been a lot better.
Yep.
It's saying I'm going to change my username if MJF doesn't get out of these useless things. I'm not even sure what to call them.
Dumpster fires.
It's pretty close to a dumpster fire. It was definitely dumpster fire adjacent. It was like a fire that was started right next to a dumpster, and suddenly the garbage is starting to light, so it still smells, but the full dumpster isn't engulfed in flames.
It's not an insane problem yet.
Yeah. Hopefully they can turn it around. Who knows where this match is going to be? I guess Grand Slam, but yeah, I think I'm with you a little bit here, Danny. I was kind of looking forward to this. And I think I still am, just because I'm curious to see how MJF and Jarrett go about planning a match. But the rest of it, everything surrounding it, this killed, I think, a lot of its momentum, at least for me.
Yeah. This was a miss. It's not the end of the world. It could still be salvaged, but this was a miss.
Again, watch their match be awesome. It's going to be a bit of an it's going to be a bit of an overbooked mess, but it'll still probably be great. All right. That means
We have a new theme song, Eric. What are you doing?
we don't. I don't know if anybody actually uploaded the MP3 for the outro.
Well,
Also,
that would be Eric's job.
yeah, that's producer.
We
boy.
should just make Battle Cry our new theme song if Kenny's not using it anymore.
If we wouldn't get copyrighted, I absolutely would. But yeah, that tells me that we're at an hour and he wants us to get out of here, and we still have like half the show. Speaking of which, after this, we had a quick preview for Kazuchika Okada against Tomohiro Ishii. They're facing off for the Continental Championship on Collision this Saturday, which sounds awesome. So we did a quick thing on that. And then we headed into our next match, which saw Christian Cage take on Hook. We'll jump to the end here, where after Hook was able to lock in a Red Rum by jumping off the top turnbuckle, Christian called in Nick Wayne and Kip Sabian to attack Hook, and that forced the disqualification. With Kazuchika Shibata already taken out on the outside by a Christian Spear. He had snuck out during the commercial break, but I didn't see that because I'm watching on HBO Max. Hook is basically left on his own as a trio attacked him before Wayne and Sabian went to the outside to get some chairs. And they, I think, were setting up for the concerto. This obviously pissed off Taz, was very emotional during this match, understandably so, as it was Christian who attacked him and forced him to go get surgery. And he started saying that he can't stand by and let this happen. And Taz stood up, took off his headset, and was seemingly ready to hit the ring. However, before he could do so, the music of one Samoa Joe hit, and he makes his grand return to AEW, coming out, headbutting Wayne, and then tossing him off of the ramp, which was, because of the smaller venue, one of those raised ramps, kind of like they have for Grand Slam. And after he tossed Wayne, he turned his attention to Sabian in the ring as Christian just bailed out. Joe hit Sabian with a power slam before Shibata was able to come back to the ring, and he nailed Sabian with the PK, and that just completely took him out, as we saw Christian and Mother Wayne on the ramp just standing there in absolute fear. So, Nick, once again, I feel like every time I'm coming to you for these, I'm saying the same thing, but this was kind of a theme of the night where, at least match-wise, what I expected to happen happened. This was a fairly typical Hook-Christian match, like Hook attacking him beforehand, the Red Rum attempts. Like, we've seen this all before. The DQ was a little unexpected. I wasn't sure if I was expecting a finish or not, but I just think I'd never expect DQs in AEW because they do them so infrequently, although a little bit more of late. But Samoa Joe coming back here is the headline. We have this trio of Hook, Shibata, and Joe back together, and I love Samoa Joe, so I'm so excited he's back.
I also love Samoa Joe, and no matter what, anytime that music hits, it triggers something in you. Like you know someone's about to get fucked up. With that being said, I thought the match was good. Like you said, it was pretty typical for what you'd expect from Hook and Christian. I thought they both looked pretty good. And what I did like was, so like you said, the disqualifications are a little infrequent and they don't really happen that often. I liked the fact that Christian kind of called for the DQ.
Yeah.
Which was a small little detail that I feel like doesn't normally happen. Generally, it's just whoever's at ringside taking it into their own hands. But I liked that little fact, the little detail there.
Yeah, I like that he was more willing to take the DQ loss and like
than actually get tap out. Yeah,
and like like he was willing to also take Hook out at the expense of the DQ loss. And then obviously he didn't account for Samoa Joe, which Taz seemingly made like he helped plan it, because he said, "I love it when a plan comes together," after Joe came out. So maybe Taz had a little bit to do with Joe coming back, but I don't care why Joe's back. He's back.
So then does that mean we maybe get the 6-man from them possibly at Grand Slam?
Yeah, I think that's what we're lining up for. I don't know if it's Grand Slam, but we're definitely lining up for that 6-man match, because that was something that we had. Well, I was going to say something we've been waiting for, but that was actually the Jericho match that we never got. So,
oh yeah,
I guess we'll have to deal with Christian Cage and the Patriarchy first, and then hopefully, I mean, not that I want Hook back up against Jericho, but maybe we just get that just to get it. and they get their revenge, and then we can go from there.
Move on to something else.
Yeah, I don't know if they would want to make Hook the Ring of Honor champion, but they could, or they could put it on Joe if they want to do that. But I don't know if they want to put Joe Shibata and Hook on Ring of Honor full time. And we haven't heard anything about that Ring of Honor TV show coming up. All that reporting is pretty much dried up. So who knows what they want to do with that. But in the meantime, yeah, I think you're right. I think we're getting the 6-man here with the patriarchy against Joe Hook and Shibata. Danny, I think, as I said when I was going to Nick here, and this was something we talked about before we started, it was kind of, I don't want to say same old shit, but it was a very predictable match from these two guys.
Yeah, run-of-the-mill, bang average, not in a bad way, just in a, of course, way. But doesn't matter. All that matters is Samoa Joe is back. His presence just makes things better. Joe is this magical thing. Joe is what people like to pretend that every wrestler is, where like they're untouchable and like no matter what happens to them, they still have their like aura or presence to them. Like Joe is one of those actual people where like, bro, he could be in the dumbest fucking shit. Joe's gonna make it credible. Joe's gonna make it interesting somehow. He just has that presence no matter what, no matter where he is on the card. Like, dude, like I remember we were at World's End when he won the title, and we were like, what the fuck? Why is Joe the champion? This is borderline stupid. And then like a week later, it was like, no, actually, he's
This
fucking
is
amazing.
awesome.
It's Samoa Joe. It's like he just gave the title so much credibility just by having it. It's like, fuck that devil shit, bro. This is where it's at. Joe's a serious
Joe's
fucking
gonna
guy.
come out, cut the best promo you've ever heard, and make it all right.
Yeah, Joe just makes things better. And like, I want the ideal main event scene of AEW to be like filled with guys who you can wonder if they've killed someone in real life or not. Like Swerve, Hangman, Joe, like all these guys where it's like I could see this character having killed someone in real life, like outside of wrestling. like yeah, you're definitely, you've caught a body or two. Like yeah.
Well, Joe had to escape the ninjas somehow.
Yeah.
So
fucking, oh god, it's fantastic having this man back on television. I'm sure we'll get a 6-man for like Grand Slam Collision, and that'll be that. No Jericho match. We're fine. We'll let that go. Totally, that's a thread you can leave just out there in the open to never be gone back to. That's totally fine. Let's do something with this. I missed the Joe Hook mentorship like stuff. So fuck it. Let's bring it back. Just Joe being back is great. It just makes something that was middle of the road and the Hook Christian stuff that much better. Like Joe makes everything better. I want to see. Put the title on Joe. Put the title. There's so many people. I'm like, put the title on. I'm like, fuck it. Like, there's so many people that can. Joe can do what Moxley wants to do better than Moxley's doing it. Like,
yes and no. I think this specifically works for Moxley because he's been there since day one. But you're right. Joe does make everything better. He took a pay-per-view called Great Balls of Fire and made it memorable. So he can make everything better. And guys, look, it's James.
He made it.
Yep. Assuming this is James and not Papa G, but I didn't see it tonight, but I do miss Joe. I hope he comes back soon. Good news, James. He came back tonight. So you should have watched. But also, side note, I was actually kind of happy Joe did win at World's End. I wasn't sitting with you guys, but I was there. It was just more of a he passed MJF out, and I don't think anybody was expecting that. And then everything that happened after sucked because we couldn't see it because it wasn't on the Tron, and nobody knew who the fuck was surrounding Adam Cole.
where I was, we could see it, and it just sucked because it sucked.
Oh, I was up near the ramp, so I couldn't see their faces. I didn't even realize it was Cole until I heard somebody yell out "Baby."
No, it's like it was just because even though I did say ahead of time, like, is Joe gonna win? Because why else would they be doing a rematch on pay-per-view? Like, it still didn't seem like plausible. I was like, what? Like This
It
is how
didn't feel
MJF's
like the
title
right
reign
time.
ends? You know, like it was a baffling thing. It wasn't a Joe thing. It was a what kind of thing. Like this is the end. Like now, this is how it. Okay, like sure, but you know, like and then like I said, the next Dynamite when he came out and spoke was like, no, yeah, this is fantastic. It was immediately fantastic. All we
And
had to do was hear Joe talk.
And he went right into that thing with Hook, and they had a great match the next week. So,
Yeah.
and he hit the ground running with his title reign. I do like, since we are talking about that title reign, to bring it back to stuff that happened tonight. We have been seeing MJF attempt to run the same playbook that Joe ran on him with Jeff Jarrett, where Joe helped MJF in exchange for a title shot, and it led him to getting the title. Last week, MJF tried the same thing, where he told Jeff, I would help you win the title in exchange for the first title shot. And Jeff was smart enough to deny it. So I do like that MJF is attempting to learn from his past and run that same playbook.
Yeah.
I thought it was a cool thing.
It's a nice little nod.
Yeah. Also, James is very excited that Joe came back. I guess you don't get a TBS in the post-op room there. That sucks.
Come on, you don't have any HBO Max?
You're lucky if you get freaking like 2, 4, 5, 7.
Oh God!
Sometimes
9.
Sometimes you just get like strictly hospital news channels, like they're like a separate feed, and so they're so bad. All right. After this, we had a quick little video package of some of the fallout from the men's casino gauntlet match last week. We had Undisputed Kingdom, mainly it was Cole, Roddy, and Cool Kyle speak, along with Switchblade Jay Wright and Danny Garcia. All of them obviously upset that they didn't win last week. Roddy called out Switch. Switch basically left him off and called out Wheeler Yuta because he's still pissed that Yuta punched him in the balls. And then Cole actually praised Garcia a little bit, and then calling him one of the great people in the match, along with, I think it was Hangman and somebody else he mentioned. And Kyle's like, Garcia? Great. And then it cuts to Garcia, and he was just like, I'm fighting every week because I want to like fight everybody and be the best TNT champion. So it looks like we're going to continue to see Switch attempt to get after Wheeler Yuta. Don't be surprised if he fights Roddy in the next few weeks. Wouldn't be surprised if we saw Kyle face off against Danny for the TNT championship either. I think all of those seeds were laid there during this small little promo package. All right. After this, we came back from commercial to an interview backstage with Double J Jeff Jarrett. And Renee asked about MJF getting under his skin. But before he could answer, Dustin Rhodes came over in full perfect face paint. So I'm assuming he had a mask somewhere on the show tonight. Anyway, Dustin says that they've known each other for a very long time, and he's ticked about MJF disrespecting both Jarrett and the business because MJF has only been in for like a minute. Rhodes says that he is behind Jeff 100% in his quest to win the AEW World Championship, and he knows he can take whatever MJF can throw his way because Jeff has already seen all of it. Rhodes finishes things off by saying Jarrett is a 12-time world champion, and that means something. He is the last outlaw, and outlaws never die, and that he and Jeff are the last of their kind, and Jeff needs to remember that before he walks off. All right. After that, we had the women's casino gauntlet match before we went into our main event, which saw Jon Moxley face off against Powerhouse Hobbs for the AEW World Championship. Before the match, Moxley had Pac and Claudio help surround the ring so that when the bell rang, Mox was able to sneak in and hit Hobbs from behind as the match started. Also, before the commercial break, we had Hobbs go full Mike Tyson and bite Moxley's ear. And I guess he accidentally got him because we came back from commercial and Mox's ear was gushing blood. It was everywhere. And it was very Fight Club. Why'd you hit me in the ear? But it was a lot of blood. I don't think Moxley was expecting to be bleeding in this match, let alone from there. Anyway, towards the end of the match, after Moxley kicked out of a world's most powerful slam, Hobbs took him up to the top rope and attempted to hit an avalanche power slam, but Moxley was able to counter that into an armbar, forcing Hobbs to make it to the ropes. Hobbs then rolled out of the ring onto the ramp as Moxley distracted the referee, and that allowed Wheeler Yuta, who had not been out there yet, to sneak out through the tunnel and hit a Busaiku knee onto Hobbs. Mox quickly jumped on that as Hobbs came back into the ring, but Hobbs was able to counter him with a spine buster, and he pulled down his straps. And then Hobbs got Mox up for seemingly another power slam, but Moxley got in a rear naked choke, but Hobbs was able to slip free as a combination of him just powering out of it / the blood making it very hard for Moxley to hang on. And when Hobbs was able to do so, Mox shoved him towards the ropes and backed up, again distracting the referee, which allowed Marina Shafir to hit Hobbs in the head with the briefcase. Moxley went for the schoolboy, but Hobbs kicked out. So Mox kicked a paradigm shift, or hit a paradigm shift, and then Hobbs kicked out again. But Moxley very quickly transitioned into the Bulldog choke, passing Hobbs out, and that allowed Moxley to retain his title. After the match, the Death Riders quickly descended onto Hobbs, pulling the brace off of his surgically repaired knee. Saying that, I sound like Michael Cole. And they wrapped it in a chair before stomping it, presumably trying to re-injure the knee. And then we had Copeland's music hit, and he and FTR came out, forcing the Death Riders to retreat as we went off the air. So Danny, once again, another good match that went exactly how I expected it to. Hobbs, I thought, looked like a beast in this, though. He was not only able to hit some really big moves on Moxley and just, again, bloody the ever-living shit out of him, but he was also able to kick out of multiple big-time shots. He shook off a Busaiku knee. I'm granted it was from Wheeler Yuta, but he shook off a Busaiku knee. He was able to kick out of a headshot from a briefcase. He was able to kick out of the paradigm shift, and he only lost when Moxley passed him out after both of those shots. So Hobbs looked great here. He looked really strong, but Moxley won. We expected that to happen, and then Death Rider attack, and we lead into that match on Collision. So nothing new here, but still very, very good.
Yeah, I think Hobbs benefited from this match, but also from just the vibes going around the story online and the fan base, where people were genuinely saying, fuck it, pivot, put the title on Hobbs. And it was like, if they did it, it would have been fucking cool. We would have been like, oh my God, it's finally over. So thank God. So that's the only way they can now benefit from how much people dislike the Death Rider story right now, is that whenever there's a title match, you'll have the portion of the audience is like, please just pivot. So that's going to get you some good near falls and stuff. So that's the most optimistic way of looking at the bad reaction, is that there's at least something to at least use. So good for Hobbs. I think he's going to win a title this year for sure. I don't mean this in as a shot, but there's plenty of them. He can win the TNT title. He can win the international title. He's going to win something this year for sure. I think this match solidified that. So I think it works. I don't think it looks bad. Holy fuck, Mox's ear, but I'd say pretty good. This too, I wish was a little longer too. This and the Gauntlet really suffered from the time management of the show, but it did its job. Solid 6, 7 out of 10 sort of angle / match.
Yeah, I thought this was kind of unique too, because it wasn't Cincinnati, Moxley's hometown. He came out in a Cincy sweatshirt. I think even Shafir had the black and orange colors. So we saw at the beginning of the match, the crowd was very much behind Moxley. And then as we got through it, Hobbs became more and more of the face. And then especially after the match, Excalibur was saying during the beatdown that the crowd couldn't abide what Moxley was doing despite being the hometown hero. So I did enjoy that dynamic. I think it was the more unique part of the match, Nick. But, it did what it was supposed to do. It helped get Hobbs over even more. He looked good against the champ, but the status quo still remains.
The whole story kind of feels very like year 2 Bloodline in terms of how the matches work. And I'm seeing Eric's actually saying that as well.
Yeah.
And it just, I know once this is all said and done and the Death Rider stuff is over, someone will probably have benefited from it. Maybe it's Darby, whoever beats Moxley, it's fine. And I think the fact that we're always going to watch these matches and we're always going to want to see them pivot is going to help make them that much more interesting. But other than that, I thought the match was fine. Mox looked good. Hobbs actually, I thought, looked great, and really got to showcase why I think he'll be a big player for AEW within the next couple of years. I agree. I think he'll win a championship this year. Could be the International, could be the Continental, could be TBS again. But I think within the next couple of years, they should really focus on making Hobbs a main eventer because he's got the skills for it.
Yeah, I was just checking. He's actually a little bit older than I thought. He's 33. He will actually be 34 on the 23rd. So happy early birthday to him. But they do have,
old man Hobbs over here.
They do have a little bit of
Time's
time.
ticking.
He's not a spring chicken, but yeah, he's awesome. I've loved Hobbs since he walked into the company, and especially since when he turned heel, because again, that snarl is one of the coolest things in wrestling.
He's no spring chicken, bro. If this was baseball, they'd be taking him out back to shoot him in the head. Bro, he'd be benched. They'd be like, bro, if you want to be a nostalgia bat off the bench, sure, but like, you know, got a guy that old. That being said, we're all 42, so like, what do we know?
We'll give you a 3-year deal with options, team options. But I do want to go into a little bit more what you were saying, Nick, and what Eric is saying here in the comments. And just to go actually through what Eric's saying, I know I put them up, but he's in reference to what Danny was saying. Isn't that what the bloodline was? And then wasn't the payoff worth it? Where you have the fact that fans aren't really liking the storyline right now to push younger guys because you want to see them win and take the title off of this person you don't want to have the title on anymore. Eric's issue with it, to continue with his comments here, is that when WWE was doing it, they were the biggest company, the biggest the company has ever been, whereas AEW was doing this at a terrible time. But the problem is every bad storyline is going to have a spotlight on it, no matter what, because of the position of the company right now. And I guess you could argue that. I mean, people are always going to look at these ratings, and they're not what they were in the early years of the company, but they're still solid. Although I'm curious to see I didn't see what they were last week, but I'm sure they're perhaps a little bit lower considering now, it's on Max and more people are watching that way than perhaps on just Nielsen boxes, which is a very outdated way of looking at ratings. But, look, they just re-signed a contract with TBS. They're doing more pay-per-views than ever. They're making a lot of money. So they're in a very strong position financially. And I think we've all agreed that their storytelling has drastically gone up in the past year, and they're in a great spot again. So I would push back on that notion a little bit, but you can see that they are using this Moxley run to help build up some guys. And they started with Orange to put him in a main event position to be like, yes, this is a guy, even though he didn't win, this is a guy who can win our world championship and carry our world championship. They did the same thing with Switchblade Jay White, where we all know that he could be the world champion, but that hasn't really been presented on AEW. I mean, dude, he was the New Japan champ, so he was IWGP world champion, so he can be the world champion of a company, but we haven't really seen that been presented in AEW. Now we've seen that. We know Hangman can do it, but he had to be in that feud for obvious reasons. And now we saw a guy like Hobbs, and Hobbs, once again, is being put over in a loss. And hopefully Moxley can go up against some more young guys and do the same thing that he just did for Hobbs, or anybody else they want to perhaps position as somebody who can be the world champion before eventually he does lose the title to whoever they want to be the world champion, Danny.
So I get what you mean, but I kind of agree with Eric. Because I think Eric's right in the sense that WWE was able to get away with it because the company was at a peak, whereas AEW is in a valley. So no one's going to be as forgiving or accepting of it. But I will disagree with Eric that, well, wasn't the payoff worth it? And it's like, I mean, yes, WrestleMania 40 was great, but that also could have just, like, the year we had, the extra year we had to wait was terrible and not redeemable. So, like, I'd rather have still just had it at 39. And then, I mean, I don't know why any Bloodline stands would be here right now, but, like, you guys could have probably got your Rock Roman match if Cody just won at WrestleMania 39. So let's let's look at it, realistically. But like I get Eric I think he makes a good point. It's like because the company it doesn't have good faith with the audience right now, so that it's not as easy to let things slide or let things play out when you don't have the goodwill with the audience that they used to have in 2021, 2022. Like so that is a big factor. So he is right in that regard. But yeah, it is what it is. Maybe they can turn it around. Like the thing is with the Bloodline, because the Bloodline sucked 60% of the time, but the 40% of the time it didn't suck, it was like really good. Like the Death Riders haven't really had that besides the initial murder of Bryan Danielson. And maybe that's the key. Maybe Bryan comes back in like April and it's amazing again. But like, I don't know. Like it's just kind of a like I'm just not gonna care for a while until things get good again. So it's like all you can do is sigh and shrug at it.
Yeah, I'm going to disagree with you that I think AEW has built up some of the fans' goodwill again in terms of their storytelling over the past year. It's definitely not where it was in like 2021, 2020, even 2020 or but it's gotten back more in the past year than from where it was in 2023. But I agree with you that, and this is something we've talked about a lot, this Moxley storyline lacks direction. And it lacks like a true mission statement. Obviously, the mission statement of the Bloodline was protect Roman, he's ahead of the table, and then it all fell apart. And yeah, there was some of it that was crap and annoying because it was always the same thing where Bloodline gets involved, Roman retains. Bloodline gets involved, Roman retains. And that all got repetitive while the stuff with Sammy and then eventually Jay ended up being pretty cool, and we all enjoyed that. Moxley right now he's winning most of his matches straight up, or at least some of them. Other ones the Bloodline the Death Riders get involved. So it's a decent mix. So that's a little bit different, but he just lacks any sort of mission statement other than I need people to step up, and then people step up and he still tries to kill them. It's like, okay, and it's just everything with he's not doing this for him in the beginning, Nick. Like it's all been just kind of this confusing mess of what he's trying to do, and that is hurting his title reign. Even though he has been helping to put guys over in his wins.
So I wonder if it's confusing because they had. And this is kind of pure speculation because obviously we have no real idea if this was supposed to happen. But I almost wonder if the plan was for them to start this group and he was going to cut these ominous promos and make it sound like Shane was going to come in.
Some sort of higher power.
Yeah, some sort of higher power that was going to take over and take control of AEW, because that's kind of what it seemed like the mission statement of the Death Riders was to take back AEW and make it, you return it to what was supposed to be, go back to the mission statement. But with a lot of what's been going on, and it kind of felt like they kept pushing it like, oh, okay, well, if Shane's going to come in, it's going to be this pay-per-view this week, this pay-per-view, maybe the next one, and it just hasn't happened. So I'm maybe inclined to believe that they're now trying to figure out what this actually is because they've just gotten too deep, or maybe I'm looking into it too much. Which, if that's the case, it just feels sometimes it's a little directionless and that they're just trying to go by it week by week. But yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, it definitely felt in the beginning that, like you said, there was some sort of higher power that was going to come in, Shane or otherwise. And then they veered off from that, whether they were thinking maybe Shane was going to come in and started this with that idea. And then when that seemingly fell through, if it was going to happen at all, then they had to pivot to it just being Moxley's mission statement. But even with any sort of mission statement, it's all been so contradictory that we don't know what he's even really trying to do. Like, it was in the beginning restoring AEW to its former glory, to what it was when the show started, when the company started. But now it's just seeming like, let's just kill everybody and like be a nuisance.
And yeah, it would almost make more sense for the Death Riders to not be getting themselves involved in Moxley matches as much as they are. Wouldn't you want restoring the former glory of AEW to be the fact that he is a guy that's going to be holding that championship and defending it and winning it by himself? And then they can, there's just always, like you said, this like contradictory notion to it that makes it a little confusing and hard to see, or hard to follow rather. I do agree with you. I think with, especially over the last year, AEW storytelling has gotten a lot better and a lot of the stuff has made more sense and been more enjoyable. But this is one where it just kind of felt like they're not quite sure where it's supposed to go yet.
Yeah, which leaves a really big shadow over everything else because this is the world title scene. And yeah, everything, that is the main focal point, or at least supposed to be the main focal point of the show. And when you have this confusing, directionless champion, then
who only sometimes comes out with the championship.
Yeah, we haven't seen that title or the trios title since Moxley won the AEW World Championship. They put it in that bag, and we haven't seen it, to the point where commentary continues to remind us that we don't even know if the title's in that briefcase. So that's been a weird thing too. Like, yeah, it is a very just weird group, I guess. And we saw Hobbs at the beginning of the show during that little preview for tonight's episode saying like, hey, Mox, I did what you told us all to do. I went out and I proved myself. I went out and I won the Casino Gauntlet match. And now, and then he finished off by saying, I'm going to make you my bitch. But he's got a point. Like, he did what Moxley wants him to do. And then Moxley comes out and tries to take his knee out afterwards. We have Maria in the comments saying the Hurt Syndicate has a clear direction more so than the Death Riders. And that's 100% true. The Hurt Syndicate wants to hurt people, get paid, and win titles. And that's not the most grandiose mission statement possible, but at least it's a solid direction of what they want to do and where they want to go with things. Moxley has this like big dream of having people step up and saving the company, and then immediately knocks down anybody who tries to do so. And it's these contradictions, I think, that are really hurting like I don't want to say any feud he's been in, because the feuds have been kind of entertaining, but just it hurts the title reign as a whole. And it's bringing everything down, and it's really hurting a bunch of wrestlers I think we all really enjoy. Except maybe some of you don't like Wheeler. I know Producer Boy hates him.
Not a Wheeler fan. He's fine. He's fine. Yeah. He's fine.
I like him for what he is. And again, he's young, and hopefully he can really figure it out as he gets older. And he's in a great position to do so with these three guys. And then he had Brian there with him too for a while. So look, hopefully they can figure this out. Hopefully they can give them some direction in the near future, because if it keeps going like this, Danny's right. Everybody's going to continue to call for a pivot. Anytime there's a title match, they're going to call for there being a title change. And yeah, maybe that will be to the benefit of the guys facing Moxley, but I think for the title reign as a whole, it is going to be a detriment. Before we close things out here, let's just hit the last two comments that we've gotten in. Eric saying, I should have read this before I did it, but it also appears as though this is Mox's brainchild, and based on the Rocky 3 stuff, he does not have a good record. His ideas are ass. First of all, that Rocky 3 thing would have worked out great had Punk actually fucking seen Rocky 3. It's a great storyline, but Punk didn't see it, didn't get it, and then it ruined what Moxley was trying to explain to him. because Punk wasn't going for it. Also, I read somewhere that RJ City is actually helping out a lot with this, which surprised me considering how well he did with the Tony Storm stuff and is doing.
I read that too. We gotta delete that footage from this episode. I don't want people to know that. I don't want to besmirch the good name of RJ City.
It might not be true. It might not be true. I had never confirmed it, but I did read it. So
I read it too, but it's a lie. And actually, we didn't read it. No one read it.
No one ever. What are we even talking about?
RJ City is a great writer, and I trust him. So I've decided that that's a lie.
Yeah. Apparently, Eric also didn't read it. Maria also saying that Kenny or Will Ospreay should be the ones to take out Moxley, and that Moxley isn't getting the fan reaction he used to get. For Kenny and Will, Danny, I know you said you agree. I agree. Those are two of the better choices. Darby could also be the guy, depending on when he comes back from Everest. If that's the direction they want to go, but
I get that this was supposed to be for Darby, but like, it's too late. He's made his choice. He's going to Everest. I know Eric Grisanti in the comments earlier said, waiting until he'll be back for All In, and that's going to be a big moment. Bro, we cannot sit through Moxley as champion until All In. I'm sorry, we just can't. There's so many names that need to be either champion or in the picture. Like, we need Kenny. We need Will. Will has to win the world title. That's common. Like,
I think
he has to win the world title. Like Hangman has to be champion again. Swerve should be champion again. We have so many people. It's more important than the stupid Death Rider storyline that we need as champions. And there's only so much time in the world. We can't wait 4 years for Hangman's second reign. It's like stuff's got to get moving. Like we got to look past this and move on to bigger and better, more core futures.
I personally think it maybe should be Will if Darby is going to be pushed out of this, and it's actually because of Darby. I think that where during the C2, Darby went up to Will and said, "Hey, like we need you in this fight," and Will was more of focusing on himself, saying, "I need to go out. I need to win the Continental Classic. I'm coming off 2 pay-per-view losses. That's not something that happens to me. Let me get my shit right, and then I will come help you." And Will clearly hasn't stepped in to help, but he's a guy where I think at a certain point he needs to be the guy to step up if it's not going to be Darby, because this face version of Will Ospreay very clearly loves AEW. He wants it to thrive and survive, and at a certain point he is going to have to go off and face off against Moxley in order for that to happen. Now, I do think there's also a story there they could tell where maybe not everybody trusts Ospreay because of his past with the Don Callis family and probably his past with them in terms of feuds and whatever. But him winning them onto his side and eventually having an army behind him to face off against Moxley and his Death Rider seems like a pretty good story to me. So I think if it's not going to be Darby, I think Will Ospreay is your answer, because he's also probably the other hottest guy in the company, if not the hottest guy in the company, outside of a returning Kenny Omega. That's where I stand on that.
I would agree with that.
Yeah. Eric's saying that he thinks it might be, or producer boy, excuse me, it would probably be Ospreay versus Moxley at All In. Maybe, again, that is a long time away. That's a while. So it's possible, but we'll see. And then they'll pull a Roman and have him lose. We'll see. But all right, let's wrap things up there, because that was Dynamite. So Nick, I feel like I said this already tonight, but a lot of tonight is exactly what I expected. It was a fine show. Some very good things happened. The women's casino gauntlet match I thought was by far the best thing on the show. I also, funny enough, like the Ricochet Swerve stuff was really good, despite the fact it was so short. But they did such a good job with the time they were given. They used it so well that I really enjoyed it. And we had some low points. I mean, that MJF Jarrett thing was obviously way too long, but wrestling wise, decent show. So, I'm not going to sit here and complain about it too much.
No, I
Or at
agree
all.
with you. I think it did exactly what it needed to. I actually think I enjoyed the women's casino gauntlet match more than the men's from last week.
I think the men, because the men's was longer, there was more things in it to enjoy. But again, the women made such great use of their time.
It was just
as they always do.
Right. Obviously, you want them to have a little more time. I think it would have made it a little bit better.
And Megan Bain appearing also is a huge thing too. Like we haven't gotten a real big surprise from the men's matches recently. So having a huge indie star like Megan Bain come in for this is a pretty awesome thing to see, especially for the first one for the women.
It would be nice if this is kind of a re-debut for her.
Yep.
But if it's just a one-time appearance and she's back to working House of Glory and GCW, I'm fine with that.
Yeah. Maria in the comments saying it was an excellent Dynamite. I didn't have any too many problems with it. And then she also agrees that Double J and MJF took forever.
Yes, they did.
But Danny, I think maybe I was just expecting a little bit more from this card because it looked very good. But I was expecting a little bit more from it because I think we usually see a lot more on these named and themed Dynamites. And I think we just kind of got outside of the Gauntlet match, a basic middle of the road Dynamite.
I think it was a fantastic card on paper, but they just put a little too much that it got a little overstuffed. You remove one thing from this and put it on Collision, the show breeds so much better. And it would have been, I think, a fantastic Dynamite if you just took out one part and put it on Collision instead. Maybe the 6-man tag, maybe the Jarrett MJF segment, but that went on way too long. But other than that, whatever. And net positive, the Gauntlet was so good. I'm just going to remember that and forget about all the other shit after that.
Yeah, I don't even know if you had to take out anything, but you definitely had to shorten some stuff. The main culprit, obviously, again, being Jarrett and MJF. You could have easily shaved 5 minutes off of that, probably even a little bit more, and you would have been able to give other things time that needed it and let them breathe more, and it would have made the show that much better. So, yeah, if that's going to be our one complaint, I think that's a pretty solid episode. But yeah, they try to pack a lot into this themed Maximum Carnage episode of Dynamite, and I think it backfired them just a little bit. All right. So on that note, I would like to thank everybody so much for watching us here at the Market Down Podcast. We'd appreciate it if you like the video and subscribe. If you like the video, it lets us know that you like what we're doing here on the show, especially here on Wednesdays. And if you subscribe, you can get all of our stuff here on the channel. Obviously, we were back here every Wednesday for Dynamite. We're starting to do Monday Night Raw a little bit more. We occasionally do SmackDown as well when big things happen. Jim Pack Zone will be on hiatus for a little bit as James recovers from his shoulder surgery. But I'm sure he will get back on that as soon as he possibly can because there's some pretty big stuff going on Impact. And he really wants to try to get into back into doing it and talk about it with you guys because he is like one of the 10 fans of that show. And he needs to talk to people about it. So be sure to subscribe for all of that. And we will also be covering as many pay-per-views as we possibly can here on the show, from whether it's AEW or WWE, even the occasional New Japan and TNA and Ring of Honor pay-per-views. Those last two are definitely James's wheelhouse. We will get to as much as we can. Also, did you guys see, I think Grand Slam is actually just like a HBO Max thing. I don't even think it's a pay-per-view. They were saying it might just be an HBO Max special.
Yeah, I thought it was just a TV special.
Yeah, I have no idea.
No, it might just be on Max. As we quickly say good night to You Know It. Thanks, dude. We always appreciate you coming by. Because the time difference, like that's going to be on in the middle of the night. I think maybe it might start at like 3 o'clock in the morning here on the East Coast. So they might just do it on Max, and maybe they'll run it later on tape delay on TBS. I don't know, but we'll talk about that more as more comes out about that. That was just a report I forget who it was from. Might have been Fightful or Wrestling Observer. I forget what. It was a credible source, but we'll talk about that more next week as we get more information on it. In the meantime, if you would like to follow us on social media, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. I mean, you could follow us on TikTok, but why? They're shutting it down like next Monday. Actually, I think they're shutting it down on Sunday. So you can follow us for like the next 4 days on TikTok. And then also Blue Sky. If you're here on YouTube, you can check the links in the description below. And if you're not and you're watching us on something else and you want to follow us on some stuff, Instagram is is it at Market Down Pod? I can never remember. Let me see if I can. There we go. Yep.
Yes.
Instagram's at Market Down Pod. Twitter's at Market Down _pod. And here on YouTube, we are youtube.com/marketdown3665. Gentlemen, we have anything we want to say before we leave?
I love Megan Bain. That's it. That's what I'm sending off with tonight.
I do too. I know my cousin Daniel does as well. I texted him to make sure he knew. I was like, dude, turn on Dynamite. Bane just showed up. He's like, what? No way, I'm turning it on. And then he's like, is Toni Storm still crazy? And I was like, well, she's a different type of crazy now. Danny, you got anything before we sign off here?
Bro, if our producer was fucking good, he would have hit the music the second Nick finished his sentence of I love Megan Bain. But, you know, we work with amateurs apparently.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm producing and hosting, and I wanted to make sure you were able to say something. But hey, Matt, that should be Nick's clip for the intro. I love Megan Bain.
Matt's not watching. He doesn't support us.
Get well soon, James.
Yeah, hopefully James. I don't know if he's still in the comments here, but hopefully he's doing well. You know it's saying get some roid up juice up. Get well soon, James. Maria saying good stream. Thank you, Maria, for joining us. And I would like to thank everybody else for joining us here at the Market Down Podcast. So for Nick Manios and Dan Hernandez and producer boy Eric Crisanti, who was here for like 10 minutes in the background. My name is Nick Cummings. Thank you again so much for watching us. Have a good night, everybody.